Hey guys, Marty here. Today I want to talk to you about wanders, but you're going to know something's different. I shaved my beard today. I look 12, I know, it's cool. Um, Anyways, let's talk a little bit about wanders. So this is going to be a two-part video. Right now I'm going to record one. It's just going to talk a little bit about my current wander setup, Escha's Mirror versus Lycosidae versus a Rare Shield, and Deadeye versus Pathfinder. The next video, I'll be talking about budget wanders as well as kind of like how to start a wander if you don't have very much to go off of, and MF wanders. I've played all three of these types of things in this league as well as previous leagues, and this is just going to be my setup of wanders. It's not the only way to go. There's also mind over matter wanders. There's also energy shield based wanders. Personally, this is what I enjoy the most, and maybe you guys will like it too. So first of all, we're going to talk about Lycosidae versus Escha's Mirror versus a Rare Shield. Personally, I go with Lycosidae. However, I was using an Escha's Mirror before I had really powerful jewels and before I had the Headhunter. The reasoning behind this for me is I like consistency. When you have a Headhunter, things die. It's just a fact. Especially with good jewels. So for me, Lycosidae is really good. Also, I like to barrage. Some people like to do kinetic blast as their single target, and what they do is they drag the monster to a wall or the boss to a wall, and they shoot their kinetic blast at it like this. So this is stacking the kinetic blast explosions. This means a lot of single target DPS, which means you can run a 6-link KB for your clear as well as your single target. Personally, I don't like this setup. I prefer to barrage, especially because some bosses are kind of out of the way, particularly in barrage or beyond maps and um, just exiles and red beasts and stuff. You're going to run into a lot of monsters that are kind of not near a wall to KB, and it takes a long time to always drag them over to walls in order to KB them. So I like to barrage, and when you're barraging, Lycosidae makes a huge difference. Never missing a barrage, you're going to notice a huge difference in your damage. It's massive. You also crit more often, so that's a huge benefit. But as far as kinetic blast damage, Escha's Mirror is going to give you more of that. KB hits so frequently that you're missing the odd KB will not be a noticeable thing for you. Now, rare shields are really good as well. I could switch to a rare shield eventually, and I could get a little bit more accuracy on my setup, and I could drop the Lycosidae without noticing an accuracy drop, or being inaccurate on my barrage either. I don't personally want to do this, but it is really good because you can see right now I'm running Grace in order to have a higher evasion so I move faster without flasks up, and also to cap my evasion with my flasks up for Queen of the Forest. But if you run a rare shield, you can drop Grace really easily and you'll still move very fast. You can see Grace gives me 2700 evasion rating. It's not too unreasonable to get a pretty good rare shield with 1100 to 1500 evasion. So that's one way to help cap your evasion with Wrath on. Also, rare shields can get a lot of damage. You can get percent lightning damage on them. You get more life out of it. It's certainly a powerful option, but my personal choice is Lycosidae for kind of end game, and Escha's Mirror for earlier in the game. As to Pathfinder versus Deadeye, I personally prefer Pathfinder, but Deadeye is extremely powerful as well. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a great option. I just like having the flask uptime of Pathfinder. It's a common misconception that Tailwind makes Deadeye faster than Pathfinder, but Pathfinder gets a lot of speed that is not actually shown, such as flask effectiveness on all of the minor nodes. Flask effectiveness means your Quicksilver gets a lot more value as a Pathfinder. It also means that because of all this extra charges gained, you're going to have less times where you just don't have a Quicksilver up. So you're moving faster more of the time. And in order to keep 10 Tailwind stacks, you would need to be attacking 2.5 times per second, and I only have a 2.16 attack speed. So that means I'd have to literally be holding my right click like this to keep my Tailwind stacks at maximum, but I'm not moving when I'm doing that. That being said, Pathfinder, great option, especially if you don't want to run Lycosidae. Pathfinder synergizes quite well with Rare Shield or Escha's Mirror because you do get a bit of accuracy on the tree, or on the Ascendancy. And it also frees up 3 points. I have to spec into piercing shots because I want pierce on my barrage and my kinetic blast. If I didn't spec into that, I'd have to put a socket in for pierce, and that's just extremely inefficient. You lose way more damage by doing that. Whereas Deadeye picks up the pierce from their Ascendancy in the bottom left. You get projectiles pierce 3 targets, and it gives you some crit. So this allows you to save points on the tree, which is why I level my Wanders as Deadeye, and then I respec them to Pathfinder around mid-90s once I've got more points in my passive tree to work with, and a little bit more damage for Pathfinder to scale. Damage-wise, the two Ascendancies are nearly the exact same. Another benefit to Pathfinder is the Elemental Ailment Immunity on Master Alchemist. This allows you to run all 5 Flask suffixes you want as a Queen of the Forest character without having to sacrifice something like your belt in order to get freeze immunity from like Cyclopean Coil or things like that. The 5 Flask suffixes you're going to want are Reflexes, Adrenaline, Warding, Staunching, and Heat. If you don't have any of those, you're going to be having trouble in a map because you're going to get bleeds on you, they're going to completely destroy your character, or you're going to be frozen, can't attack, you're dead, or you're just not moving fast because of not having adrenaline, not having reflexes for your Queen of the Forest, and then warding, getting temp chains and LE weakness and vulnerability off from map mods. It's extremely powerful. So by running Pathfinder, I'm able to fit in the Dying Sun without having to cut off my Headhunter. So that's really good. Gear-wise, the main components are Queen of the Forest and Piscators. These are pretty much the only quote-unquote core Wander things. Every other piece can be replaced with a myriad of different options. But Piscators is like the best starter wand by miles. You can replace it with a rare wand, and I intend to before too long. If you want to see an example of a rare wand you could replace it with, you can watch my previous video on my Slayer Wander from Abyss League. That wand was roughly 10 to 15% more damage than a Piscator's, depending on how much WED you have on your gear, or elemental damage with attacks. That being said, as a new character, you could even just run a Piscator's and a Tabula, and 6-link your Kinetic Blast, and you're going to clear maps really easily. As you work up to this kind of a character. But those are the core components. Next up, I run Tomb Fists. The reasoning behind these gloves is that Intimidate is a 10% more multiplier. They give an absurd amount of life because of the percentage life on the gloves, as well as 2 Abyssal Jewel sockets. With my particular gloves, it's like they say 66 flat life and 5% life. That's really good. And then you also get a bunch of damage from the jewels themselves. As you can see on the gloves, Murderous Eye Jewels are necessary for Intimidate. Murderous Eye Jewels can only have up to 3 damage properties for Wanderers, or 2 damage properties and life. The final property you could get is Evasion, but it's just so insignificant I don't bother. You just look for a good 2 or 3 property Murderous Eye Jewel. I wouldn't really recommend running Tomb Fist unless you can get 3 socket. Or 2 socket rather, just shell out the extra money for it. It's absolutely worth it. Next up, Bubonic Trails, same concept here, percent life, flat life from the jewels. Again, I wouldn't recommend running them without 2 sockets. The extra money is absolutely worth it. If you can't afford those, go for some rare boots. That's perfectly fine. Headhunter, absolutely not necessary. You could replace it with Stygian Vise with a single socket, resistances, strength, life, craftable elemental damage with attacks if possible. It's a really good option. I ran that until I got my Headhunter. I might still have it around. I can show you guys. Let's see. Yeah, here was my belt. I ran this belt until I got my Headhunter. This belt helped me cap out my resistances, gave me a good chunk of damage. I had a strength amulet to fill out the strength that I needed from my Headhunter. You can see I can't equip my boots because of my increased duration 2020 without Headhunter on. But yeah, you don't need a belt this good. Just go for any belt with like WED and life and resistances. You're going to do great. Amulet-wise, mostly what I'm looking for is crit multi, elemental damage with attacks and life, and if possible, craftable lightning damage. This one also came with really good resistances, so I was really happy with this. I paid about 250 chaos for it. I think it was absolutely worth it. It allows me to get my intellect for my Piscator's Vigil without having to spec into more nodes on the tree. If I take it off, you can see I don't have enough int for my weapon. If you're running an imbued wand, then that's obviously not a problem, but I'm running Piscators still, so for me, I needed the. As far as your rings, I really like the Curse on Hit setup. By running a Curse on Hit Ruby ring, or sorry, Curse on Hit ring, I'm able to drop Herald of Ice, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark from my links, which frees up another aura slot. I use that aura to run Purity of Lightning. This gives me maximum lightning resistance as well as helping me cap my lightning res, as a lot of my items do not have resistances on them, so that can be difficult. You could also run Purity of Fire, Purity of Ice, or even Purity of Elements. You could also just run a Herald. There's tons of different options for auras. Just try to, run the one that works best for you. I run an Enlighten to have a little bit more mana available. If you don't have enough mana to cast your KB 2 or 3 times without going it feels really bad. So I highly recommend that you run an Enlighten if you can fit it into your links. Even if you don't need the mana, it's just going to be a good quality of life thing. My other ring, we're rocking just an opal. You don't need opals. You can totally just run a resistance ring with a little bit of wed and some flat lightning and life if you can't find an opal or can't craft one. I crafted this one with Essences of Torment. I then annulled, or no, actually it rolled with open prefix, I believe. So I didn't even need to annul for this one. I just scoured the suffixes, multi-modded it, and this is the final product. Helmet. My helmet's absolutely insane. You don't need a helmet this good. Prior to using this helmet, I was just using one that had socket attacks have 3% crit chance for my kinetic blast. You could also run your KB in gloves, grip gloves if you want to, with Essence of Hysteria. That's an option. You could run Thunder Fists, put your KB in that if you want to. You can also just 6-link your KB, and you don't have to worry about having an extra link anywhere. There are a bunch of other options on helmets that work, such as Innervate, Immolate, Hypothermia, or even just the crit, like I said. All of those are really good options, but this helmet is my pride and joy at the moment. I'm eventually going to scour the prefixes until I can hit life plus hybrid life, and then craft the elemental damage with attacks. That'll happen, who knows, over the next few weeks. Flasks, bubble or instant life flask of staunching. I really, 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 really highly recommend this. It's very important. And it's easiest to have your staunching on your life flask because when you're bleeding, you're going to panic press your life flask anyways. It'll remove the bleed. When I'm running through maps, I'm usually just hammering my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as I go. Every time I kill a pack, I just press all my flasks because I know they'll be up because I'm a Pathfinder. Experimenter's Diamond Flask of Warding. The prefix is not important here. I'm mostly just looking for the warding. Experimenter's is a really nice prefix, but you don't need that one specifically. Dying Sun. This could be subbed out for a Vinktars or Wise Oak or an Adziri's Promise. All of those are great options. You could even run a Taste of Hate if you want a little bit more defensive option there. But Dying Sun's kind of like a great endgame item, especially if you're barraging, because it adds a huge amount of barrage damage. I run the Jewel Conqueror's Potency because with Pathfinder, with Flask effectiveness from your Ascendancy, as well as Alchemist and Conqueror's Potency, it gives you 50% total Flask effectiveness, which means Dying Sun now adds 3 additional projectiles instead of 2. This is a huge damage multiplier on your barrage. It allows you to drop things like greater multiple projectiles and gain more damage from that. So really highly recommend this flask. It's roughly a 75% more multiplier on your barrage if you don't have any additional projectiles elsewhere. Alchemist Quicksilver of Adrenaline. This is absolutely core in my opinion for a Wander. I would never run a Wander without this flask. Even if you're like budget and you can barely kill things, just spec into flask nodes and run this flask. Like I said, you don't have a movement steal other than Flame Dash and Lightning Warp, and that means you want to run fast. So get this flask 100%. You can also get a mirror of it in Beast Crafting. That's something new to Bestiary League. So you can see this is a mirrored flask, and the way I created that is I have my non-mirrored flask somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so yeah, I have my non-mirrored flask right here. I take this into the beast crafting thing. throw this into it, mirror the flask, and I can create a copy. I can indefinitely create copies of the flask. It's really handy. You could have a friend create one for you and just pay them, you know. It's really, really, really good to do. Chemist Jade Flask of Reflexes. The Chemist's mod is not important. You should have any prefix. Alchemist is also a really good option if you don't have enough evasion elsewhere. I'll probably switch to that later on and run Wrath instead of Grace just to push my damage to the limit. But for now, we're running the Chemists of Reflexes. This caps my evasion for my Queen of the Forest. We hit 46,000 evasion. Good to go. You only need 45,000 for Queen of the Forest to hit its 100% movement speed bonus. And, you know, the reflexes roll, you're going to want it as high as possible, but, you know, anything that gets you above 45,000 total evasion rating is good enough. So that's the deer. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about the tree. I do have a leveling video out on Wanders. You can watch that if you're interested. You can see how I like to level these characters. It is using Twink gear. But anyways, with the tree, we're going down to Duelist. We're picking up all the life and damage over there. I get my mana leech down there. I'm picking up jewels along the way. And then we go over, we take Phase Acro. We're going up to Witch to pick up some more life, some Flask effectiveness, some crit multi, all of that good stuff. Picking up as many jewel slots as possible along the way. And then my most recent points have been Arcing Blows for a little bit of penetration and lightning damage because now all of my jewels are lightning focused. So about jewels, guys, if you're creating a wander, what you want to look for on jewels is things like this. It doesn't need to be 4 properties, but as much flat elemental damage as possible. Prior to getting Arcing Blows, it doesn't matter whether it's lightning, fire, or cold. Cold is the lowest value, but it's still perfectly viable. Just try and get 2 flat damage rolls in life. Also try to get blind on hit, phasing, and onslaught from your abyss jewels. They're all really, really good quality of life things. Like I said earlier, we're running Conqueror's Potency. But yeah, you can check my jewels out in my profile. I'll put the link down below. This video is already running longer than I wanted, but Wanders just have so much to talk about. So, like I said, this is just an overview of my current Wander. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I will be releasing a new video tonight or tomorrow, depending on how I'm feeling after my stream, if I'm up to record it, and that'll be detailing kind of like a Wander MF setup, how I kind of made my character to this point, as well as going over budget Wanders. So be sure to check that out. Subscribe to the YouTube if you want to get that video automatically. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry I can't include everything about Wanders, but then the video would be 30 or 40 minutes long. And you guys, you know, were already complaining about my 26-minute Elder video, so I figured I'd split it into 2. Hopefully you guys like it, and hopefully you guys don't miss the beard too much. I wanted to go clean shaven for the summer and spring, so I'm going to try and keep that going. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys on my Twitch. The link will be in the description below, so will the profile for this character, and I'll include a Path of Building import link for the character as well. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you around.